A humble child born into obscurity, destined to become a titan of crime that would shake the very foundations of society. Meet Hussein Beybassen, the lovely child who morphed into Europe's most notorious drug lord, likened to the infamous Pablo Escobar. At the tender age of 20, he was already embroiled in a web of hashish possession, setting the stage for a life drenched in criminality. But how did this seemingly ordinary boy from Turkey ascend to the throne of Europe's underworld? What drove him to carve out an empire of darkness that would leave a trail of devastation in its wake? Hussein was born on Christmas Day, December 25th, 1956, in Lys, a small and underdeveloped town in southeastern Turkey. The region, predominantly Kurdish, was marked by economic hardship and political strife, factors which often nudged the young and relentless towards paths of less resistance and more risk. His family, like many in the area, struggled to make ends meet, a situation that likely influenced Beybassen's later choices in life. Beybassen's first brush with the law happened when he was just 20 years old, in 1976. During a police raid at his home in Lys, officers found 11 kilograms, about 24 pounds, of hashish. This large amount of hashish suggested that Beybassen was already deeply involved in drug dealing. Lys was close to major routes used for smuggling drugs from the Middle East to Europe, which might explain how he got involved in the drug trade so young. He likely used these connections to get the hashish, showing he was not just a small-time player, but an active participant in the drug trade network. This early involvement with the law led to a 2-year prison sentence for Beybassen. However, instead of turning him away from crime, prison life introduced him to more criminals and taught him more about the underworld. After completing his 2-year sentence in prison, he was let out. This time in prison didn't discourage him. In fact, it prepared him for a bigger role in organized crime, eventually leading him to become one of Europe's most notorious drug lords. However, before that would happen, Beybassen faced multiple betrayals. Considering that he was away for quite some time, it had been reported that many of his allies, unnamed, had now turned into his enemies due to a power struggle, which eventually led Hussein Beybassen to leave the region and look for bigger fish in the sea. He set his sights on the UK. In 1984, Hussein Beybassen's trajectory in the criminal world escalated dramatically due to a significant operation in the United Kingdom. During an operation named Operation Takedown, he was apprehended for heroin trafficking and possessing a forged passport. This coordinated effort involved officers from the Metropolitan Police Service who had been tracking the movements of heroin from Afghanistan through Turkey into Europe. Beybassen was identified as a key player in this route. The arrest was the result of months of surveillance and intelligence gathering. Officers had been monitoring Beybassen after intercepting communications that linked him to large shipments of heroin. He was eventually caught in a sting operation where undercover officers posed as buyers. This operation was set in motion due to increasing concerns about the rise in heroin flow into the UK, which was starting to have significant social and health implications. Beybassen was tried and sentenced to 12 years in prison. However, his imprisonment in the UK was brief. After serving only 4 years, he was transferred back to Turkey in a move shrouded in mystery. Official records do not fully explain why this transfer was allowed, but it is speculated that diplomatic negotiations might have played a role. His release from Turkish custody just 4 months after his transfer in 1989 sparked rumors and allegations of governmental corruption or influence, suggesting that powerful connections were at work behind the scenes to secure his early release. Soon after returning to Turkey, Hussein Beybassen's freedom was quickly cut short. Just 4 days after his release in 1989, he was arrested again in Silivri, a city near Istanbul. He faced serious charges this time: unauthorized possession of narcotics and unauthorized possession of a firearm. Clear signs that he jumped right back into his criminal ways, and the life in jail failed to teach him a lesson once again. The charges indicated that Beybassen was caught with several kilos of heroin and a gun without a license. It seemed likely that he'd arranged to get these legal items while still in jail, through his corrupt network, which included local officials. This network helped him quickly get back into criminal activities, showing how deep the corruption and his criminal connections went. Despite the gravity of these crimes, which normally would lead to a long time in prison, Beybassen wasn't locked up for long. His ability to leave Turkey quickly and avoid more legal trouble highlights how powerful his network was. This network reached beyond other criminals and even included political and law enforcement people, allowing him to manipulate the system in his favor. However, as outrageous as this was, the world yet had to witness the height of Beybassen's criminal enterprise. After fleeing Turkey, Hussein Beybasin strategically chose Amsterdam as his base for heroin trafficking. This city, known for its large port and status as a major European logistical hub, provided the perfect getaway for distributing heroin across Europe. The choice was tactical, leveraging the city's established roots and relatively liberal policies. However, Beybasin wasn't alone in handling the business. While he was busy setting up the narcotics trade in Amsterdam, his brother, Abdullah Beybasin, set up operations in North London, another key location that offered access to the lucrative British market. The brothers' division of these key areas allowed them to cover a broader territory, maximizing their influence and control over the European heroin trade. The Beybasin Empire's operations revolved around the heroin trade, which not surprisingly began far away from Europe in Afghanistan. Afghanistan was, and still is, a primary producer of opium, the raw material for heroin. The drug was transported through Iran and Turkey, capitalizing on the porous borders and the chaotic political climate in the region. From Turkey, where Beybasin had established strong connections with local power brokers, the heroin was moved to Amsterdam and then distributed across Western Europe. This network was not just a business, it was a well-oiled machine that capitalized on regional instabilities in Asia and liberal policies in Europe. Unlike many secretive drug lords, Hussein Beybasin was surprisingly open about his criminal activities. He frequently engaged with the media, discussing his operations and his influence within both Turkish and Kurdish circles of power. This bold public stance was a double-edged sword. On one hand, it bolstered his reputation as a fearless leader, unafraid of legal repercussions, which possibly enhanced his standing in the criminal underworld. On the other hand, his openness provided law enforcement agencies with ammunition against him. Beybasin's interviews and public statements painted a picture of a man who was both a savvy businessman and a ruthless criminal leader, deeply entwined with political and military networks, including connections with NATO officers and Turkish embassies, which he claimed helped facilitate his drug trafficking operations. Through these actions, Beybasin not only established an extensive drug empire, but also crafted a public persona that was part shrewd entrepreneur and part brazen gangster, challenging authorities and competitors alike. His ability to maintain visibility in the media while managing a massive drug trafficking operation demonstrates his complex approach to power and influence in the criminal world. However, as harsh and unpredictable as the underworld is, every rise has to see a fall. Hussein Beybasin's reign as a drug lord came to a dramatic end in 1998 when he was arrested in the Netherlands as part of a major joint operation involving several European countries. This operation, dubbed Operation Nemesis, was the result of collaboration between British, Italian, Belgian, German, and Dutch police forces. These agencies had been tracking Beybasin's activities for years, piecing together his involvement in the heroin trade across Europe. On March 27, 1998, Dutch authorities executed a well-coordinated raid in the small village of Laut in the province of North Brabant. Beybasin was caught red-handed with substantial evidence implicating him in multiple criminal activities. There were paper trails connecting him to money laundering for money received in exchange for drug deals. Not only that, but undisclosed witnesses came forward connecting him to the murder. The charges against him including conspiracy to murder, kidnapping, drug smuggling, and leading a criminal organization. This arrest was a significant victory for European law enforcement, showcasing the power of international cooperation in tackling drug trafficking and organized crime. The trial that followed Beybasin's arrest was intense and closely watched. Central to the prosecution's case were numerous telephone recordings, which had captured Beybasin's explicitly discussing drug deals and orders for violent acts. These recordings became a controversial point in the trial. Beybasin's defense argued that they'd been manipulated and were not reliable evidence. Despite these claims, the evidence proved overwhelming. In February 2001, Beybasin was convicted on multiple charges, including conspiracy to murder and drug trafficking. The court sentenced him to life imprisonment, a decision that was based largely on the gravity of his crimes and the extensive documentation provided by the telephone taps. A life lived as a drug lord doesn't come without consequences. Since his incarceration in 2001, Hussein Beybasin has faced significant challenges regarding his mental health. Reports indicate that he's developed chronic post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and somatization disorder. PTSD in Beybasin's case involves severe anxiety, flashbacks, and ongoing psychological distress related to his experience both before and after his arrest. Somatization disorder has manifested in him experiencing physical symptoms, including pain and discomfort, which have no apparent medical cause but are instead believed to be manifestations of psychological stress. These mental health issues have reportedly deteriorated over time, affecting his daily functioning and interaction with prison staff and other inmates. His conditions have led to multiple psychiatric evaluations and necessitated special medical interventions within the prison system. The extent of his mental health problems highlights the often overlooked consequences of long-term incarceration of individuals held in high-security prisons. But still, despite being put behind bars, there are persistent claims that Beybassen has continued to exert control over his drug trafficking empire. It is suggested that through coded communications and visits, he has been able to issue orders and manage operations from prison. Moreover, his family, particularly his brothers and close associates, are believed to have taken active roles in maintaining the network's coherence and operations. This family involvement has ensured that while Beybassen's physical mobility is restricted, his strategic influence over the drug trade remains intact. These claims, although hard to verify, have been taken seriously by law enforcement agencies across Europe. They indicate the deep-rooted nature of the criminal networks Beybassen's established and the difficulty in dismantling such organizations completely. A critical point in Beybassen's case is his claim that his criminal activities were not just tolerated but actually facilitated by the Turkish government. According to him, this forced cooperation involves complicity at high levels of the government, including law enforcement and political figures, who allowed and sometimes directed his drug trafficking operations as part of broader geopolitical strategies. Beybassen alleged that these connections were instrumental in enabling his heroin trade across Europe, suggesting that his criminal enterprise served some political or economic interests of certain Turkish officials. These explosive claims have led to numerous investigations, but concrete evidence remains elusive, clouded by the complex interplay of alleged corruption, political maneuvering, and international diplomacy. The ongoing monitoring of Beybassen's network, even after his imprisonment, indicates a sustained commitment by European agencies to dismantle his drug empire completely. However, the case also underscores the challenges faced by these agencies, such as jurisdictional limitations, differences in legal systems, and the need for extensive intelligence sharing and coordination. What are your thoughts on Beybassen's story? Let us know in the comments below. If you like our content, don't forget to check out the channel. We've got many more Underworld stories to share with you. See you in the next one.